Back with you here on Gridiron 2023, Dr. Ron Poniewasz and Professor Larry Kelly, our Gridiron crew, joining you for another episode. And Larry Kelly is a member of the Luxembourg, Arbit, Kelly & George law firm. He's also the varsity baseball coach at Neshannock and a former ninth grade boys basketball coach at Newcastle High School. Larry, always great to have you on board with us.
Great to be here. Great to talk high school football. Even though it is playoff baseball season. And, if you're a baseball fan, this is the best time of the year, man. These playoff games are just unbelievable. There's nothing like the pressure of playoff baseball. I mean, it's pitch by pitch, it's second by second, it just drips with intensity. But we're here to talk about high school football, and we're here to talk about a guy who rushed for 184 yards in 12 carries. Even in my math, I know that's about 15 yards a carry. Pretty special stuff. Tell us about Anthony Eakin.
Yeah, Anthony Eakin will lead us off for Athlete of the Week, and we have a secondary topic where we will exclusively talk about one of our Lawrence County football teams, and in our third segment, we will talk the schedule. As Larry said, Anthony Eakin of Neshannock High School is Athlete of the Week. Anthony is a 5'10", 170-pound sophomore running back, defensive back. Last week, he had 12 carries for 184 yards and 2 touchdowns in a 35-7 win over New Brighton. He had touchdown runs of 80 and 22 yards, Larry.
I read in the paper, and I don't know if it's true or not, but one of the coaches suggested that he has 4.5 40 speed. Wow. That's a special kind of running back. And, as the years gone on, he's been getting better. He's only a sophomore, and he had a couple big games already this year. And last week against New Brighton, it was just outstanding. And Neshannock imposed their will in that game. They ran the ball for 370 yards, held New Brighton to 37 yards. They dominated the line of scrimmage. And when you do that in a high school football game, you're going to win. And look, Neshannock has been through pretty much the toughest part of their schedule. So, it's not, they don't have a cakewalk the rest of the year, but they're getting better as a team, and they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. And, as this sophomore gets more experience under his belt with the natural ability that he has, and if indeed he has 4.5 speed, don't be surprised if Anthony Eakin has a few more 80-yard touchdown runs. I saw that touchdown run on film. There was nobody close to him. So it was a great night for a great running back.
Yeah, I'm sure Coach Fred Mazzocco was telling the kids, it's nice to get wins, whether it's 27-26 or not. But, after you win 2 in a row, 27-26, you go on the road against the team that you're better than. I'm sure he probably told them, I want the win. Let's play Neshannock football. And, 35-0 at the half. They certainly delivered on that.
Well, again, they dominated the line of scrimmage. They ran for 370 and held the opponent to 37. And, that Coach Mangino told me that they believe that the strongest point of their team is their offensive and defensive line. And they came to play on Friday night, and I'm sure if you asked Anthony Eakin, he'd be the first one to tell you, with the holes I had to run through, all I had to do was keep my feet moving. But I did see the 80-yard touchdown run. This young man can fly. There was nobody closing on him. So I believe he might have 4.5 speed. And if he does, you'll see more big games from Anthony Eakin moving forward.
Sure. Anthony has 477 rushing yards on the year on 53 carries, and he has 6 touchdowns. So certainly great numbers for a sophomore running back, and he's filling holes that were left by the void from graduation from last year. As I remember, I think they had, five of their top running backs that graduated last year.
Look, Ronnie, I've always said this. If I had my druthers and as a high school football coach, I'd want an experienced offensive line. I'd want the guys up front that can move people, and I'll take my chances with sophomore running backs. But this kid is he has some special skills. and blazing speed. And again, a sophomore, only a sophomore. As the year goes on, he's probably going to get better, and that's a scary thought. I just hope he doesn't play baseball. He'll steal a base every time he gets on. So congratulations, Anthony Eakin. What a great game, and what a great game for the Lancers.
And we'll touch more on this on our schedule portion, but this week they welcome Freedom to town. And you touched on their schedule going forward. They still got that matchup against Mohawk, so that'll be a huge one for the whole dynamic of the WPIL. Not just MAC football; it'll have bearing on seeding too.
Where's that game?
I want to say it's at Mohawk, but I do not know that for sure.
That's going to be a great football game. That's going to be a great football game. You got two really good teams. And again, it's a tri-county rivalry. I always knew there were some rivalries in the tri-county. But, I coached at Newcastle my whole life. When I got to Shenango, listen to me, Laurel, Shenango, Neshannock, Laurel, Mohawk, Neshannock. They're rivalries. They're great rivalries. And that's what makes those games in every sport really special. The kids know each other. After the season's over, they play summer league basketball together and against each other. It makes it special when, the teams are from the same town, the same neighborhood, the same county. And that's going to be a great football game. Can't wait to watch it.
Sure. Anthony Eakin, Neshannock's 5'10", 170-pound sophomore running back, defensive back, is our athlete of the week for his 12-carry, 184-yard rushing performance with 2 touchdowns in a 35-7 win over New Brighton. Coming up next, we will talk about one of our Lawrence County football teams solely on the next segment right here on Gridiron.
One thing I learned growing up around here, people should look out for each other. Be friends and neighbors that you can count on. So it bothers me when people who are hurt in automobile accidents get bullied by the insurance company. I don't let bullies run over my clients. I do what I was taught growing up. Step up, stand up, and speak up for those who can't. I'm Larry Kelly, and I'm a Newcastle guy.
We're back with you here on Gridiron, and we are going to talk about the Newcastle High football program. As we know, Newcastle has fallen on hard times over the last couple of years, winning its season opener last year against Summit Academy and Stacey Robinson's debut as Newcastle football coach. Since then, Newcastle has went on to lose 15 in a row. Last week, losing to Montour to run that streak to 15 in a row. Newcastle is 0-3 in the Parkway and 0-6 overall. And Larry, we took a photo, and apparently it was posted on social media. And in the gist of it was the photo was supposed to be, a featurist shot of the cheerleaders, cheering on the football team. In the background was just literally 2 fans out of a bunch of, empty bleachers, more or less. And, then there's comments on social media. As you know, there's always a comment section. And Larry, it's so depressing on how you're looking at that, and people are ripping apart, the coaching staff and this and that. And, I'm thinking there's got to be a way around this that, first of all, everybody has an opinion on the coaching staff, yet there's like 12 fans in the stands at every game, but yet everybody's got an opinion on it. You're either a fan and you go to the games, or you're not a fan and leave it alone. But it seems like 10,000 people have their opinion, but they won't go to the game. That's number one. And second of all, I'm probably one of the biggest Stacey Robinson fans, maybe apologist of Stacey Robinson. I think you got to give the guy time. I mean, he's got a young team. He tells me every week, I have talent out there. We just have to put 4 quarters of football together. We play well in spurts, but spurts won't win you football games, is how he puts it. Larry, you've probably watched games on stream, whether they're live or Memorex, as the saying might have went years ago. What is your thoughts on Newcastle football from either what you read in comments or what you see?
Well, the numbers are down. Let's start with that. You know, when I graduated from Newcastle High School, there were 600 students in my graduating class, and 2,000 in the top 3 grades. Newcastle had a city population of close to 50,000. Hence, there were 10,000 people in the stands on a Friday night. Hence, you did have, talking about numbers, there was like maybe 100 kids tried out for the team, and they cut 30 of them. You had to be good enough back then to play at the next level. And I don't care what sport it is, whether it was basketball, baseball, football. If you weren't good enough to play at the college level, you weren't going to get on the field or the court in either one of those 3 sports. That's just the way it was. You had to wait your turn to play. I always said, to play at Newcastle, to play in any sport, you had to be good. To play as a junior, you had to be great. And to play as a sophomore, you had to be special. There were very few sophomores who ever saw the field or the court in any one of those 3 sports because of the competition. Now we're in a setting where they graduate about 160 kids, and you got 9th and 10th graders playing. And in high school sports, 9th and 10th graders don't beat 11th and 12th grade. They just don't. And when you're playing young kids, especially in the sport of football, there's a pretty good chance you're not going to have a lot of success. And listen, I've coached for 25 years, and I've coached elementary school, and I've coached at the college level. And the best example I can give you about, playing with young people, Carmen Nacera, one of the best coaches, baseball coaches in the area. He was the head coach at Westminster. I was the assistant coach. And one year we played all sophomores, right? All sophomores. And we were 15 and 25. When those kids became seniors, we were 28 and 12 and won the PAC championship. And Carmen and I, we laughed. We said, wow, people were calling us really bad coaches 2 years ago. It's amazing how much we've learned in 2 years, Ronnie. I mean, coaching plays a big role. Don't get me wrong. It does, but it's all about the players. It's all about the players. And if you're playing 9th and 10th graders like Newcastle is, you're not going to beat the Montours, the West Alleghenies, the Central Valleys. You're not. You're just not. You're not going to beat those teams. And so, yes, you got to give this coaching staff time. They don't have a lot of numbers. They don't. I don't know how many kids they dress, but it's not like it used to be. And it's never going to be like it used to be where you had 100 kids try out for football. So, the fact of the matter is there's only so much you can do with young players. And I don't care. You can have Vince Lombardi there when you're playing 9th and 10th graders in the football season, and you're playing teams that are playing juniors and seniors, you're going to get beat. That's how simple it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're almost like, whether you agree or not with this, they're almost like a mirror image of Shenango. If you remember last year, Shenango played a lot of young kids, and then naturally they're a year older this year, and they've won a couple games, a couple of big games, defeated Rochester. I had a tough loss last week to Northgate, but Newcastle, same way. Last year, they're playing young kids. These are still some of the young kids that they're playing, but they're in an awfully, awfully tough conference, Larry, the Parkway Conference. And those kids are still young, a lot of sophomores. I really think next year we're going to see this team develop, and hopefully string something, positive together, because they're getting a good cohesive, core around them, where they're playing hard, and maybe the wins aren't there, but they're getting playing time, and they're building something for the future. You got to be patient with this,
especially in a football program, because, when you're in 10th grade, your body is completely different than what it will look like 2 years later when you're a senior. It's just, it's true in any sport, but it's especially true in football. It just is. And like I said, those sophomores that we were coaching at Westminster, they were 19 years old, maybe 20. When they were seniors and we won the Pac championship and they went 28-12, they're men. They're 22, 23 years old. Same thing in high school. You know, the quarterback's a 10th grader. He's a tremendous athlete, Tyrell Harris, but he's a sophomore, you know, and you're playing against Montour. You're playing against West Day. Really? You're playing against Central Valley. It is, the Parkway is the toughest conference in Western PA. It's not even close. And they got Aliquippa coming out, you know, so look, you got to give it time. You got to develop talent, and you got to hope that, you know, as these kids mature, you know, they become better, more in tune with the program, you know, more in tune with what the coaches are trying to do. It's hard to create a culture, Ronnie. It's hard. It's the hardest thing to do, create a culture. And a winning culture is one of laser focus, mental toughness, self-discipline, and total commitment. And if you're lacking any one of those four, let me say them again: laser focus, mental toughness, right? And total commitment. If you're lacking any one of those, you're not going to be successful in the long term.
Yeah. And a lot of times, you know, Stacy preaches that he's got talent on that team. He's got athleticism, and he does. You know, Kyrell Harris, Kayvon Gardner, Malik Jefferson, JT Warren. He's got talent on that team. He does. The wins aren't there, granted, but he has athleticism. He has talent. It's something to build from. And last week, Malik Jefferson scored their first touchdown, and he basically had to be carried off the field. And when I talked to Stacy after the game, I asked him, you know, how's he doing? Do you know his injury status? And he told me, he said, I don't know right now, but he leaves it all out on the field. I just talked to Stacy a little bit ago, asked him about his injury status, and he said, I think by game time he'll be fully ready to go. He leaves everything out on the football field. He does not take anything into the locker room with him. He leaves it all out on the football field, and that's the way all those kids are. Normally, I'll ask Stacy after a game if he felt the team played hard all the way through the end. If like the Montour game, the West Allegheny game, those games where they weren't competitive from a final score standpoint. I think the Montour game, he said, I would have liked to have seen them be a little bit more competitive and play harder, you know, toward the end. But that doesn't mean they totally quit either. And getting back to Malik Jefferson, he does leave it out on the field. You could tell he wanted to get in the end zone. That was a 4th down play, and he found a way to get in the end zone from 6 yards out on a 4th and 2 play. And one of the talented kids that they have.
You need 25 of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because in like, you know, in basketball, we've been very fortunate at Newcastle, you know, but you only need 5 or 6 upperclassmen, 7 maybe. In football, you need 25 because people get hurt. It's hard to play 2 ways, both ways, the whole game. You know, that used to be the old school way, but it's not done that way anymore. You know, so it's a matter of developing these young men, making sure that they stay focused, they stay mentally tough, and they are getting better. I don't see as many penalties now as we saw earlier in the year. They ran the ball for 136 yards. That's not too bad. So I do see some progress here. And the key is, even with young players, are we getting better as a team? Are we making incremental improvements? That's what a coach wants. Are we making incremental improvements, even though the record might reflect it? When you watch the tape, you know, on Saturday morning, you can see it. And, you know, that's what Newcastle should hope for now. Let's make incremental improvements with these young men. And let's hope that a year or 2 years from now, you know, we have something special. You know, Kayvon Gardner, I had him. He's tough as nails. Kyrell, I had him. JT, I had him. I had these guys. These are tough dudes, man. And they're good athletes. But it's just a matter of being able to develop physically, you know, as a football player, to be able to be more tied into what the coach is trying to do. And, once you do all those things, good things will start happening.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Anything else, Larry, that you'd like to say regarding the Newcastle football team?
I still bleed red and black, and I always will.
Okay.
And it was a great night. I watched it. You were there, the 73 team. They did a great job of honoring those men. And many of them came back. What a beautiful night that was for those guys. And for probably some of the older fans who still remember that game. It was a great night for the 1973 Whippeal champs. It really was.
Would have been awfully nice for more fans to come out and support not only this year's team, but to honor that 1973 team. But what can you do?
You realize that's 50 years ago, Ronnie. And so somebody who was 40, 50 years old may no longer be around to honor that team. I'm 70 years old. I mean, I was a kid. I was 20 years old when that went down. Came home from college to watch the game. But if you think about the 10,000 fans that may have been in the stand the night they had to beat or tie Butler to get to that playoff, probably 3/4 of those people are no longer with us.
Right. Okay, very good, Larry. Let's hope we can get some quality play by the Canes down the stretch. They have a 1-win team coming up this week. Naturally, as you mentioned, the Aliquippa game the following week, and then they have a couple of winnable games, Ambridge and Blackhawk in that order. And look, Char Valley with 1 win. I think Ambridge and Blackhawk are both winless, and if they're not winless, they have 1 win. Look, you theoretically you could be looking at a Newcastle team that could win 3 of its last 4. But you got to play hard, and they will, because that's what Stacy always says. You're either getting better or you're getting worse. And he says, and we're always improving. The most critical thing he will say is maybe we need to our practice needs to be a little better during the week because it doesn't show up on the field on Friday nights. So, but he says they're improving and they're playing hard.
If the kids are giving you everything they have, that's all you can ask.
Right.
If you miss a tackle, you miss a tackle. It's like in baseball. If you make a physical error, that doesn't bother me. I've made 1 million of them in my playing career. But you can't make mental errors. That's where the mental toughness comes in. So, I mean, if you miss a tackle, okay, people miss them. But if you're out of position because you blew the assignment, that's different. Those are the kind of things that you need to fix. And I'm sure he's working on it every practice.
Okay, very good. We have one more segment coming up here on Gridiron. It is our schedule portion, so don't go away.
I became an attorney because I believe in hard work, fairness, and human decency. In a word, justice. Our workers' compensation clients deserve justice because in an instant, their hard work turns into hard times when they get hurt on the job. No doubt, life is tough, but so am I. I've been fighting all my life, and I'll keep fighting for you. I'm Joe George, and here in Lawrence County, it's personal.
We're back with you here on Gridiron, our scheduled portion of the broadcast. And as you know, this is what I call the 7th week. Be the 6th week if you buy into the week 0 nonsense, but it'll be the 7th game for everybody around the county. And essentially, this is where, in theory, you stick your foot in the ground and head up field, because you got to start making a playoff push. And some of these teams that we have in our county are in that position where, if not now, when, at least for this year. First off, Larry, we have Newcastle 0-3 in the Parkway, 0-6 overall at Chartiers Valley, which is 1-2 in league, 1-5 overall. Last year at Taggart Stadium, this was a close game. It ended up 22-13 cosmetically in terms of the final score. However, Chartiers Valley was up. It was either 15-13 or 16-13. I can't remember, but Newcastle threw a pick 6 right around a half minute left in the game or so to make it a 2-score game. Otherwise, Newcastle's driving for, I can't remember if it was the tying field goal or the winning field goal, what have you, but they were right in it right up to the end.
Oh, this is a winnable game. And again, let's make sure we don't make any mental errors. Let's make sure we take care of our assignments, and then let the kids play. And there is a lot of athleticism out there, big play possibilities. It's there. So let's hope. I'll be rooting for the Hurricane on Friday night.
0 turnovers by Newcastle, and you can look for a Red Hurricane win. They will drive home happily down 79 with a win in their back pocket in this game. Northgate 2-1 in Big 7 action, 4-2 overall at Laurel, which is 0-2, 1-5. Another team, Larry, that's got to put their foot in the ground and head upfield, Laurel, because if they can win this game against Northgate, they've already lost. Laurel has against Union, and they've lost against Rochester. They still have Southside Beaver, which is undefeated. So this is a must-win game for Laurel. They still have.
Yeah, I mean, again, they're playing young guys, but they've been competitive in almost every game they've been in, and they had a tough time last week against Rochester. Rochester, if I'm not mistaken, ran the ball for 357 rushing yards, which is unusual for Laurel. Normally, Laurel does a good job at the line of scrimmage. So if they do a good job at the line of scrimmage, this is a winnable game for them. And again, they're getting better every game. And that's a pretty good sign. Last week was probably a step back for them. But again, Rochester's a pretty good football team.
Beaver Falls 2-1 in the Midwestern Athletic Conference, 3-3 overall at Mohawk, 3-0 in the MAC, 5-1 overall. Mohawk has lost, if memory serves me, 14 games in a row head-to-head against Beaver Falls. Again, if not now, when, Larry? When does Mohawk get this W?
I think they get it Friday night. I really do. The game's at home. I mean, Beaver Falls is good. They have big play capabilities. If you remember against Neshannock, they had a couple big plays. They ran the ball really, really well. But this Mohawk team is got something special going. And, again, last week, I mean, what can we say about Jay Rona? 21 for 39, 271 yards. Bobby Fadden, another 2 touchdowns. But what was impressive about their performance Friday night is they had 430 total yards in a high school game. And they were pretty balanced, 271 in the air, 164 on the ground. It's hard to beat a team that has that kind of balance.
Yep. Freedom 1-2 in the MAC, 2-4 overall at Neshannock, which is 3-0, 5-1. At what point, Larry, does a team have to worry about looking ahead?
They ain't looking ahead here. Coach Mazaka's not letting them look ahead. It's a home game. It's against Freedom. Neshannock has the type of offensive and defensive line that's going to set the tone. They're going to win this game. Their next big one will be against Mohawk, which will be a great game. But no, nobody's looking ahead here. Neshannock will take care of business on Friday night.
Southside Beaver 2-0 in the Big 7, 6-0 overall at Shenango, which is 1-2 and 3-3. And last week, right here in this very same spot, we talked about Shenango and playing a Northgate team that we felt they were better than Northgate. And that was a game that you had to win. And they went down to Northgate and came back with a loss.
Statistically, that game was pretty close. Shenango threw the ball for 221 yards. They only rushed it for 66. They're having a hard time running the football consistently this year. And I'm sure Coach Graham would like to see a little more balance in his offense. But what hurt them last week, they gave up 3 touchdowns on the ground, 55, 50, and 27 yards. That's got to be a breakdown somewhere in coverage or in scheme, something to allow that to happen. Somebody missed some tackle somewhere along the way, or maybe was out of position. That's what turned that game around, or Shenango would have beaten them. I think so anyway. But look, Southside Beaver's good. The game's at home. Bounce back game for Shenango. It's a big game for them. They need to win it.
Last year, Shenango put 75 on the board against Northgate, and last week they lost. Last year, Shenango lost to Southside Beaver 15-13. So this was a very competitive football game. I'm sure Jimmy Graham's probably telling the kids that are returning from last year's team, which are probably virtually everybody, you can play with them, go out and get the job done.
Yeah, it's a home game. And, Southside Beaver, it's an hour bus ride. I made a few trips down there. So it's an advantage to being at home, and it's an advantage, to be sleeping in your own bed and not having to worry about leaving early for the game and all that stuff. So I like Shenango on Friday night.
Rochester 2-1 in the Big Seven, 4-1 overall. They're one of the teams, as is Riverside, that elected not to play a week 0 game, which is why they are 4-1. At Union, which is 2-0 and 5-1. Union coming off a 54-7 road win over Springdale last week in non-conference action. And I talked to Kim Needball earlier and asked him the difficulty of playing conference games and then taking a break, going out of conference, and then getting back into it, how it affects the team's mental state. And he said, I just told the kids to get on the bus not last week, go down and win your football game, stay healthy, and we'll get back into conference play. He said they took care of business and did what they had to do. Yeah,
and this is going to be a little tougher game. Again, Rochester put up a boatload of rushing yards last week against Laurel. I don't see them doing the same thing against Union. And, of course, Union is just, they're so balanced. Also, last week, again, 307 total yards. Braylon Thomas, 13 for 18, 307 yards. And then Dane Jonke, we don't even say his name that often. He had 2 touchdowns, 1 catch for 1 for 76. They got a lot of balance. They got a lot of weapons. And, one of the best quarterbacks in the WPIAL. So that's why Union is where they're at and who they are.
New Brighton 0-3 in the MAC, 0-6 overall at Elwood City, which is 1-2, 3-3. Must-win game for Elwood, which has lost 2 in a row. And Larry, you got to remember, this is the 7th game of the season for Elwood, none of which have been on the road. They have enjoyed the comforts of home for this game will mark 7 straight for the Wolverines at home.
Yeah. That game last week, even though they got beat 38-14, it was closer for a while. The game, it got a little bit out of hand at the end. But, Elwood City, they can run the ball, they can pass the ball. It's a good football team, and they're going to take care of New Brighton this week. New Brighton's struggling, but, Elwood's a good football team. I think they win this week.
Yeah, and then next week they play, I believe their first road game of the year is at Beaver Falls. That's a fine how do you do for your first road game.
Yeah, Beaver Falls is good, and that might be the game that determines whether or not Elwood City gets to the playoffs.
Sure. Wilmington is a District 10 non-region game. This game was moved, Larry, from Thursday to Friday. It was scheduled for Thursday, and then they decided that let's play it on Friday. We confirmed it is going to be Friday. 2-4 Wilmington at General McLean, which is 3-3, a District 10 non-region game, as I mentioned.
Yeah, General McLean is normally a pretty good football team, and my guess is they may be a little better than their record. And of course, Wilmington's been struggling a little bit. Last week against Farrell, they gave up 357 passing yards. They still can run the ball, the Greyhounds, 179 on the ground, but their passing yardage was 1. They need a little more balance, and Coach Fillion doesn't need Larry Kelly to tell him that. So I'm sure they're working on that.
It's probably pretty much between the 20s. They're moving it between the 20s, 20 to 20 on the ground. It's just that they've got to do something to get it into the 10-yard painted area and put points on the board. They had 6 points on the board last week.
Well, I'm sure they're stacking the line of scrimmage against these guys. You gotta be able to throw the ball a little bit to create some room to run it. And even though Wilmington can still run it, but you're right. When it gets down close to the end zone, there's not a lot of room. So you need to open it up a little bit.
Yeah. And so do you feel that it's time for that offense to evolve into maybe not an air raid like Mohawk, but do you feel that it's time to be a little bit more balanced? Remember, last year they had Tough McConaughey, and he's now in Ohio throwing for over 1,300 yards in the regular season.
Yeah. Wilmington, listen, their staple is running the football, and they've won a lot of games and a lot of championships running the football. And I'm still a firm believer that you need to be able to run the football in high school to win championships. But you got to be able to throw it to just a little bit. They don't throw it for a lot of passing yards. They had one last week. They had 1 yard passing, and that's just not going to get it done, in my view. And again, that's just Larry Kelly talking. I never coached football. So my man Joey Flora, who coaches at Neshannock, the Flora family, I grew up with him. Sammy Flora is my hero. And I played with Denny. He told me stick to baseball. When one of his comments, he told me stick to baseball. So again, I'm an analytics guy. I'm a big believer in analytics, and there are certain analytics in the area of football that tend to dictate who wins and who loses. And I think you need a little more balance in the Wilmington offense, and it would help them. That's just me.
Yeah, that was an enjoyable comment to read, Larry, I must say.
He told me stick to baseball, and he's probably right. How about hoops, Joey? Am I allowed to talk about that? I mean, I was riding Coach Blundo's coattails for 12 years, so maybe I learned something. So, but anyway, I love it when people comment. I wish more people would. You tell us when you think we're right. You tell us when you think we're wrong. I love it. Listen, I love a good debate. That's why I'm a lawyer.
Sure. Okay. Well, Larry, any parting words as we travel off into the rest of the week here?
It's getting really interesting. As a coach, as the year goes on, you learn more and more about your personnel, about who is best fitted to play where and who is best fitted to do what. And I think that's what good coaches do. And that's why good coaches, their teams get better as the year goes on, because you're able to identify strengths and weaknesses of your team and of the players. And that is so important, because I will agree with Stacy. You're either getting better or you're getting worse. You're either moving forward or you're moving back. You're not staying the same. So there's a lot of good coaches out there, and there's some great football to be played, and I can't wait to watch it.
You know what it takes to win, Larry? 2 words. We got to hear it one more time. If we're playing the drinking game with Larry Kelly, get your beverage, laser
focus, mental toughness, and total commitment. I'm a Mike Tomlin guy. I want 10 toes in the water. If you can't put 10 toes in the water, then maybe you should think about doing something else other than playing high school sports. That's just me. I'm not saying I'm right, but I know I was around a lot of winning teams, and there were 10 toes in the water every time we won something that was important. You need that commitment, you need that focus, and you need that mental toughness.
All right. Very good. He's Larry Kelly. I'm Ron Poniewasz. We thank you for joining us here on Gridiron. Be sure to join us next week as we get another step closer to the end of the regular season and finding out who's in the playoffs and who's going home. We'll see you next week.